Welcome to the virtual towers of binary Arcadia, where the games go on long into the night. So, hi Barcadians, today you're joining Rich and I in a little introduction to our next BArcade update video, which I know there's quite a few Barcadians on the channel who are interested to see what we've been toiling away with and what the current project is looking like. So pretty much I can put my feet up at this point and have a chill because Rich has been doing all the graft on this occasion. Hang around and enjoy the whole video, but please stay for the summary at the end, which will talk you through kind of where we are to date, what lies ahead of us, and yeah, we'll see you on the flip side. But Rich, first of all, do you want to kind of preface this update for us with all that you've been toiling away on?
Certainly, mate. So, in essence, I've just been working on the cabinet, cutting wood, shaping wood, creating the cabinet almost in its entirety. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I've been doing.
I think you've had some help from, is it Dallas Dog has been chipping in with you as well?
Yes, yeah, he's been walking past, making sure he's supervising, I would say. That's the role he's assumed.
So enjoy that, viewers, as well. You've got kind of a subtext, like a little game of Where's Dallas throughout this next update. And I certainly remember his fluffy tail bobbing up at one point, so look forward to that. So yeah, I suppose this is kind of a real moment for us, isn't it, Rich? Because we've just been talking in preparation for this video. It's kind of a realization of the project that we've got something, you know, really to look at, talk about, and get excited for now. It's a realization of some of the more extravagant ideas as well. So yeah. Anything you want to say on that front? Maybe linear actuator wise?
I mean, the one thing I would say is we were, and especially given the fact we've never done a project of this type, we've gone at it incredibly ambitiously with lots of stretch goals, some of which we still have to attain if we want to go that far. But certainly from where we sit now, we can see that, you know, we've planned the project seemingly fairly well, and the things that we wanted to get into it so far, we've managed to materialise them. So feeling good about the project at this point, and those with a keen eye and those who watch to the end may see a sneak peek of some linear actuator action. So stay tuned for that.
I've seen it, everybody, and I can say it's worth hanging around for. Or if you really push for time, just skip to the end, and yeah, you'll get a little tantalizer. So yeah, without any more banging on, I think we'll dive straight in. And just from me, Rich, you've done some sterling work here, and I'm well impressed. And I hope everybody else enjoys your kind of engineering insight into the whole project. So away we go.
So the time has finally come for us to dive into the woodwork part of our bartop arcade project. So today I'm going to be working on trying to get all the parts cut and potentially start to assemble them together. It depends how much time we've got. So a few things to note. Firstly, I'm having a preliminary design. I've then taken that and drawn it up properly to get us a proper idea of how we're going to make it, basically, because of the linear actuator, it differs quite a bit from ones that are out there. So from that, I've had this metal template cut, which I'm going to use to help router out the sides. So the first thing I need to do is use the template to mark out 4 sides. And you might be wondering why 4 sides, because, and the simple answer for that is we're going to make 2 at the same time. We may not finish the second one, but I said to Tabz, while I'm making one set of components, I may as well make 2, because the additional time required to make 2 is negligible compared to making 1. So let's dive into it. So first thing I'm going to do is, because these are going to be the main outside of the unit, we want a fairly nice edge or face of material. This seems fine. So I'm going to drop this on here, and I'm going to draw around it to give us a shape for the side. Something to note is, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rough cut this with a jigsaw, and then I'm going to use a profiling router bit. It's basically a router bit with a little ball bearing on that you move around a guide, and that cuts that routers the part to that shape in essence. So I'm going to cut this 2 or 3 mil bigger with the jigsaw, and then I'm going to use a router to do the final cut using this template to give us a lovely outside finish. Because remember, the outside of this sides are going to be visible. They're going to be, you're going to see the edge of the plywood, and that's going to be a nice little detail for us. So I'm going to try and make that as good as possible. Right, let's get these drawn out. So that's 2 sides. Now we've got a slight split in the wood here, which is not the best, so I'm going to spin this one round and use the other end. So now, as I say, I'm just going to follow round this with the jigsaw, leaving 2 or 3 mil over so that then I can router profile it to it, and I'll literally clamp the template to it and run the router around it. So let's get outside, get this cut up. So I thought it might be quite nice to go through what we're going to be using for this part of the project. So we've got a very old Black & Decker jigsaw. We've got a Bosch router with a profiling router bit. That's basically a router bit that has a ball bearing on that follows a profile that you're cutting against. I've got clamps, extension lead, and I do find the router incredibly loud, so I tend to use ear defenders when I'm using the router. Right, let's set up. So first things first, let's cut around with the jigsaw. Helps if you turn the power on, of course. So again, just to recap, I'm leaving a 3 mil border all the way around this to do the final trim with the router. That's the first one rough cut. Two. Three. Right, so that's all then rough cut. Now time to set the router up. Using the template I mentioned earlier, I'm going to clamp this to it, leaving a slight edge all the way around, and then I'm going to run the router around it using the profile router. So let's get this clamped up. So ear defenders on for this because it's going to be loud. So the depth is not quite right. I need to come up a touch. And there we have it, the first side. Looks like that's routed really nicely. Got a really nice edge on that. That's going to look superb. Look at that. Just give you a close up of that. That's going to look superb. So I'm not sure you really need to see me do that 4 times. That might be a bit tedious. So we'll fast forward to the point where they're all routed. Right, there we have it. 4 sides. On to the next bit. Right, so the next job I need to do is, as we've already established, the wood is all going to be 500mm wide. So the 2 pieces, the 2 sides get joined together by pieces that are 500mm across. So I'm going to cut all of the remaining wood I've got down to 500mm widths, and then I can just cut off the lengths of pieces I need. So I'm going to do that by rough sawing them down with the circular saw, and then I'm going to again use the router just to router the edge, just so we've got a lovely finish on the edge, just so that when it goes together it will go butt up really nicely. So let's get started. So I'm literally just going to use a straight edge. I'm going to clamp the straight edge on, and then I'm going to run the router along it just to give this a lovely edge. So I know that my router, if you use it against the guide, it cuts 98mm back. So what I've done here is I've set this straight edge at 101mm back, so I'm just going to whip 3mm off that, and then we'll mark the other side and then cut it. As I just repositioned that, because it's actually my saw that's 98mm, the router is 52mm. So I've repositioned that 54mm, 2mm trim off, we'll get it cracking. There we go, nice and simple, and that gives us a lovely edge. Bought that at 503mm, so that I could do a 3mm trim off with the router. Put a mark on here at 448, which is 52mm back from where we need, and then I'll clamp this on, run the router down it. It's always good when you're doing a final cut just to nick it, measure it, make sure it's measuring right, and then obviously if it is, carry on. If it's not, adjust and redo. There's a prime example. I've measured that measures 501, so we need to move this 1mm that way. So now that measures right, we can just rip the router along it. So that's one board prepped at 500mm wide, so we'll do that on all the other pieces, and then you join us when we start cutting it up into smaller pieces. So the next thing I need to do is cut all of these that have been cut to the right width down to the right lengths. Some of them have got angles on, so that when they go together they miter nicely. Now I was going to use my circular saw to do that, set it on the angle, but for some reason I can't get a consistent cut with that. it's tending to wander off, so I'm going to actually cut them by hand. I'm going to mark them out, and I'm literally just going to sand them, probably with an electric sand, probably a grinder probably, to get them to shape. So I'm just going to trim everything to the right sizes now, and then anything that needs an angle I'm going to look at as a retro thing. So let's get on to that. So that's that routed. Now what I've done is, from my scale drawing of it, I've worked out what every single piece needs to be cut out in a length, and from that I've created a list, and this details every single size I need. Some have got angles on, some haven't, and then from this I can then cut all of the pieces I need. So I'm going to get to it and just cut all the pieces, all straight cuts to start off with, and then I'll add the miters after. Right, so I've got a lot of the bits cut now to size, just on the straights. Obviously I've got the angle still to put on, but the marquee bits need a routed piece out of it, so that the marquee can like be inset into it, and they're quite small pieces. Well, I think one's like 85mm wide and one's 50mm wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to route the edge, so that'll be the seam edge. Then I'm going to route the indent in it, like the cut back in it, and then I'll cut it to size. So I'm routing the inset in a bigger piece than I need. It's just so I'm not trying to route a piece that's really small. So I'll go on and do that. So the next thing to do is set my guide so that when it cuts, it's going to cut 4mm into the wood. So basically 52mm is what's left. So I'm going to set this at 56mm back from the edge, and that will give me my 4mm indent. Then I'm going to set the router to a depth of 4mm, and that should give me my my 4mm by 4mm recess. That looks about 4mm, but I'm going to just use a scrap piece of material and just double check that that looks about 4mm. That looks fantastic, so we'll now run the router along to give us our 4x4 recess for the marquee. And we'll just repeat that on the other side. So now I've just got to do the final cut on the other side of the marquee pieces. I'm having to use a second piece of wood because it's so small now, there's nothing to get hold of. So secondary piece of wood, this puts up against that, then everything's clamped together. All I've got to do is whip that along there, and it's done. So for those that are interested, that is what I have done to hold the marquee, and that is going to be the bottom piece. The marquee will come, the marquee drop here, this way. That's pretty much all the woodwork done. So now it's just a case of assembling it all, although I do still have to put the angles on the pieces that need angles. Right, so I need to cut the screen aperture out. So again, I've got a jig. I've laid the jig on. I'm going to draw around it. I'm going to drill a hole, rough saw it with the jigsaw to the size, and then from that I'm going to route around it. the first things first, I need to put a hole in it so I can get my jigsaw in. No, Dallas, I don't need your help. Go! Dallas, go! Go. Now it's a case of dropping the router on, sorry, the template on, and setting the router up and routing around it, basically. Simple. And there we have it. There's a screen cut out. I'm really happy with that. Super. On to the next bit. Right, so I mentioned about putting the angles on, and I was going to do it with my circular saw, but it wasn't working out as I wanted to. So what I'm doing is I'm marking where I need to basically miter two, to take wood off two. And then with the electric plane, I'm taking it down so it's 90% there. And then with the angle grinder, I'm just finalising it. And then with the flat sander, I'm just making sure there's any rough bits taken out. Pretty much all these joints aren't going to be seen, so if they're not absolutely perfect, I can use a bit of wood filler, and then obviously it'll be painted afterwards, so it won't really matter. The first thing I do is mark the thing. I know this one needs to be marked at 9.2. So I scribe a line 9.2. And then just make sure that's really visible with the pencil. I'm basically using that scribe line to mark, to use to run the pencil down. And then electric plane on the angle to get it to the right angle. This piece is for the joystick, so it's got an angle at the front where it meets the piece that goes down. It's got an angle where it meets the screen. They're both slightly different angles, so I'm just going to mark this that it's the front, just so that I know which is the front and which is the back. So like I say, electric plane, and then finish with the angle grinder. Finally, just rub it with it. This is the flat surface, just to see let's just let you have a look at that. So that is what we have done. So as you can see, I've started drilling the holes, marked them all out. I need to drill 28mm holes for the buttons. I need to double check what size I need for the joysticks, and then I need a 35mm hole for the hotkey button, which is going to be a BA logo. So I'll just drill one so you can see what I'm doing here. And that's it. Right, now I've finally completed all of the pieces to make the case. I've drilled all my holes, all my cutouts have been added, I'm ready to put the unit together. So how am I going to do this? Right, Inside we're going to have these little blocks. This is 15 by 15 pine, and screws will go into this one way and into it the other way, and that's what's going to hold it all together. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is measure all of the pieces I need to cut and just start working through cutting the pieces that are going to go around all the bits. So, first thing to do, make a cutting list. Right, so I've got my cutting list, which I've just measured up. So the next thing to do is to work through this cutting list with my chop block and just cut what I need. So let's get the first pieces cut. Remember, these pieces are just going to be inside, so it's not absolutely critical that they're all cut perfectly square, perfectly true, all that. We aspire to be good at the cutting and that, but at this point these are inside, they're not seen, it doesn't really matter. So I've measured this one, first one on the list, 480mm, put it through. And literally, it's as simple as that. So I'll work through this list, get them all cut up, and then we'll jump in the next stage. So I've cut all the bits, now it's a case of screwing them all on. Now in essence, these are going to sit on the inside like that. Some are going to have to be flush, some are going to have to be set in by the thickness of material, some I'll need to put it together and see where they go. So the next job really is to pilot drill everything and then just literally start screwing stuff together. So that's what I'm on with. I'm going to use a scrap piece of wood to drill onto. I'm going to use a pilot drill which is consistent with the screws I've got. So yeah, let's go into it. So two different types of holes needed, some that go through this way. So this one I'm going to put 2 holes in. And we also need some that go the other way. And I'm just going to offset them so that they're not going to clash with the other holes. And there we have it, holes drilled through. So I'm just going to go through all of the rest of the pieces of wood and get them to the same stage. Right, so as we saw, drill the holes, countersunk, quick whip over with the sander so they're all going to fit nice, and then it's a case of attaching them to the sides, preparing to screw it all together. Now, I'm basically going to clamp this on, but a little tip here if you are making this yourself, always leave it ever so slightly back from the edge. And the reason for that is so that when you screw it together, it's pulling the outer piece to the, so you're basically pulling the plywood to the plywood, and it'll mean that you definitely will not get any gaps once it's all screwed together. At the moment, we're just going to screw this together unglued, check everything fits and everything's right, make any changes that are required, which I'm sure there'll be some, and then at that point we will look at dismantling it, doing any final prep before paint, and then gluing it and screwing it. So clamp that on, I've evened this out left to right as we're looking at it. Like I say, slightly back from the edge, and then just drive your screws in. It's always a good idea when you are putting these together, parts that are symmetrical, always choose the best side to point outwards. This is what I've done here. This side's got a few little knots on it, so I'm going to put it as the inside. There we have it. One baton will screw all together, screwed on. I've got the same to do the other side, and then all of the other pieces. And then we'll join me again, where hopefully I'll be screwing the main parts onto the side, sorry. Right, so I've screwed the pieces on. That's obviously the keypad piece. I've screwed the pieces on the front piece. And then what I've done is I've made this little, so this is where the screen goes. I've added the pieces of wood there. I've clamped these two pieces together, making sure it's all nice and flush. drilled and screwed that into there going that way, and then I've added this piece. This is now the marquee. So screwed it in that way, screwed it in that way, and that's ready for the secondary piece, which is this piece here. We're just going to go on like so, and then you can see that's going to make the marquee piece. So that's where I'm up to. I think we're almost ready to start actually assembling it onto the side. So this will go like this. If I'm honest, I've probably gone overkill with screws, but I just wanted to make sure everything was really nicely, tightly pulled together so that we didn't have any gaps or anything. So next job, find a few bits and pieces of wood to go on. I've got to put them on the back. And then I think it's time to start putting the pieces onto the sides. So we're getting there. Right, I think all the pieces are prepped to now put together for the the final build sort of thing. So the first piece I'm going to put on is the front. And one thing I will say is I've just spent the time to clear up all the mess, all the dust, so I can ensure that nothing's going to get trapped between the wood and create any issues. So top tip there. So just one thing to mention, what we've decided to do is set the wood in 8mm all the way around. So I've set my combi square at 8mm, and that's basically going to help me when I need to clamp stuff down, make sure they're in the right place and stuff. So let's get on with it. The first piece is going to go flush with the bottom, real simple, and then it's going to be set in 8mm. I use my combi square just to push this into it so it reads over nice and flush. And I've just got a clamp on this so that I can get one of the screws in. Don't want it to move around while I'm screwing it. Final check the squareness there. Double check that we've got the 8mm that we need. Which we have. One final check, it's always good to just do final checks on these things. Nice and flush with the bottom. Just moved that, so I'm just going to double check it. And then it's a case of whacking and screwing, hoping it doesn't move. I highly recommend these screws. They're from B&Q. They do not need to be piloted, and they really drive in nice. They self-drill, and they really pull the wood nice. Just let the other screws go in. Going to reposition the clamp so that it's not where the screw's going. Just double checking that we've got the right inset there. And the second screw in. We have the first piece connected. It seems fairly sturdy. I'll just give you a shot of that. Can you see that? 8mm gap there. That's how much we're overlapping. So you'll still see this. When it's all painted, all this will be black, and then this will be ultimately varnished, I guess. But yeah, and you can see that that's pulled in nice and square. So I'm going to continue on like that. Join me in the next bit. Right, so I've basically just followed that exact same thing, following it round, making sure we're keeping the 8mm. Put some screws in, I've not put them all in. I'd like to get it all together before I put all the final screws in. Obviously there's bits that will need to be pulled together yet. The next job is to flip it over onto the other side and start putting it on the other side, and that will start getting me more into where we need to be with bits and bobs. So that's what I'll do. I've not actually prepped another side at the moment, so I just need to quickly whip through that, just sanding off any little burrs that remain from the routering process. Right, that's ready to go. Superb. So just a case of flipping it over onto the other side and start clamping it up where it needs to be. Right, so what I've done is, front, I've lined it up exactly as I did the other side, 8mm, exactly the same. I've measured the 8mm on the angled piece with the buttons on, which is this piece just here. And then I've put this on, I've mimicked the distance it is at the top to the bottom. And then again, I've used my combi square to make sure it's all 8mm. To ensure that we don't have any twist in it, I've measured where all of the pieces come. So like I know that this, at the top here where the marquee comes, is just over 144mm. I've done that on the same side so we can try and ensure there's no twist in it. So now it's a case of just putting some more screws in, and that's the other side connected. For now, I'm just going to put a couple of screws in, just here. And just going to mimic what I've done on the other side, and that's just to ensure in case there is any, you know, I need to move it, then I have got a little bit of leeway. I can just undo a couple of screws and we're there. So I'll bang this one in. There we go. In theory, that's the two sides joined together. There's lots more screws to go in. At this stage, I'm going to have a quick look at it and see how it's looking. Clamps off. What do we think? It's coming together, I think. Right, so that's all the front pieces connected with the 7 million screws that I've used put in there. So the next job is to put the back on. Again, much the same as the front, it's going to be an 8mm gap, so it's a case of just putting that in, measuring the 8mm gap, putting screws in. Now, this is going to be a little bit more challenging than the other pieces because we're getting to the point now where I can't actually get in as easily to get to the pieces, so yeah, it's going to be a bit more challenging. Push at the bottom, stepped in 8mm, and much like before, I'm just checking everything as I go along, making sure we're exactly where we need to be. That's looking good, so I'll get a clamp on that. One thing I will just check is that the base, there's enough room for the base to go in. Yeah, that looks like it's going to be fine. Worst case scenario, if it is a little bit tight, as long as it's not too small, we can just trim a little bit off it. A little bit tricky at the top, so I can't get a clamp on it. Maybe I'll do it differently. I'm going to like sandwich it in between two clamps, so I'm going to go, that's 8mm. It can't move forward and it can't move backwards in essence. Brilliant. That's some screws in. I've now used so many screws, I'm now onto the second box of screws. Like I say, I've gone a bit overkill on screws, but I wanted to make sure that it was all nice, so there we go. Just move this one. Can't really see what I've just done, but I'm literally screwing so it's pretty cool. I'll put a screw on the top, and then flip it over and do the other side. Well, hopefully you'll be able to see a bit more from this side what I'm up to. So you see these screws here. So I'm basically lining it up on the other side to ensure we've got the 8mm offset, and then I'm putting the screws into these here. All as before, make sure it's flush at the bottom, and then it's 8mm. Same at the top, and as before, the piece of wood set back at the top, so I can't get a clamp. On the piece of wood, so I'm going to do the sandwich clamp again so that it can't move. Right, that's some more screws in. I'm going to do this end one first. Again, all as before, we're checking as we go, making sure everything's flush. Once we know everything's flush, we can drive the screw in. The middle has decided it wants to have a little bow on it. So I'm just going to press that. Just need a little bit of persuasion there. This top one in. To say this would have been so much easier if I had taken the drawing out. So that is it. The back is on, the carcass is together. I've just dropped the hinged flap on, just so you can see how that will go. There's no hinges on that at the moment. I'll just bring you around the front so you can see what we're looking like. There we go. There we go. There we go. That is the completed carcass. Now, one thing just to mention, the keen-eyed viewers will see that the carriage is already in there. Now, we have made the carriage, and that will be in the next update. That concludes this update.
Hello everybody, so back from that journey and hopefully a very interesting ride through Rich's experience designing, making our BArcade bartop arcade cabinet. So Rich, let's just flip it straight over to you, my friend. In this, what we're going to try and do for everyone now is summarise what we've done, where we are, what your main challenges were, how you overcame them, and perhaps give everybody a bit of an idea as to where we're headed next. So what do you think, buddy?
So basically, in essence, I've cut all of the wood. I've shaped all of the wood, drilled all the holes. I've assembled the entire thing. A few bits left to do on that. Like for instance, the flap at the top is not finished. I guess in some respects you could argue that I've maybe gone a little bit far with some of the ways in which I've done stuff, like it wasn't necessarily needed to router every edge, but I chose that method because I thought it not only would it give us the cleanest lines, it would give us the neatest possible edges on the whole thing. I really wanted it to seem like a premium unit, and I think that's really stood the project in good stead as a foundation to move forward from.
Absolutely, mate. It looks fantastic. I mean, just one question though: have B&Q put in an emergency import for the screw stores? Because how many did you use in the end? Was it a box of 50 or something?
No, I think there's a box. Is there a box of 50 plus another part box of 50? I think I say on the video I've gone overkill on the screws, but I didn't want to.
There's a reason for that though, isn't there? There's a big reason for that, which we can kind of cover off now, I suppose.
It's twofold in essence. So firstly, I didn't want any gaps. I wanted to make sure everything was pulled in really nicely, but also, unfortunately, the wood had been stored incorrectly at B&Q, and when you store plywood incorrectly, it warps. So unfortunately, the wood all had quite a big bow in it, which created.
Which you solved though, didn't you? Did you use some sort of? Did you soak it to kind of?
Yeah, so I did some research on the internet to work out how you could straighten curved plywood, and the answer was you basically spray warm water on the inside of the curve, in essence, and then you basically put some weights on it and weight it down so it's flat, leave it to dry, and then put it somewhere cool to sort of set in that position, and that made the panels a lot better. They weren't perfect, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to to maybe go a little bit overkill on screws. And yeah, I'm sure B&Q were thanking me for all the screw orders I'd put through.
Science. Well, I think it looks great, mate, and I'm sure any slight buckling is only detected by your eye, cultured, working so closely with it. So yeah, I don't think there's anything to worry about there.
The only other thing that I had some difficulties with, and I think I do reference this on the video, is I would plan so there's quite a few mitered cuts on there, and there are a number of different angles. They're not all the same angle, and I'd plan just to run the circular saw down them. I've got a circular saw. You can set it to an angle, and you can just rip wood down to the right angle. And I'd plan to do that, and then sand it to a lovely cut. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a straight cut with my circular saw. Whatever I did, I was running it against a straight edge, and even though I was running it against a straight edge, it would veer off by anything up to 3 or 4 mil, which was never going to do for the project. So I came up with a slightly radical idea. So I used my electric plane, which I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the electric plane. I do think it's a cracking piece of kit, but you just can't do anything with any finesse with it. Well, certainly I can't anyway. It's too...
There's an art to it, is there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just can't use it well enough. But I decided the best way to get the angles perfectly to what I wanted was to mark the angles, roughly rip them down to the right angle using the electric plane. And then
you eyeballed it with the grinder, did you?
Yeah, so that's technique I picked up from when I used to do metal work on the shop floor when I started my career in engineering, and that's just one of those techniques. You're taking 2 points and you're joining them up. And yeah, I mean, you've seen the finished product tabs, and I'm sure you possibly got a sense of that from the video, that it seems to have worked nicely and given a good finish. So that was a positive. So it's a hurdle, but we got
it. I mean, definitely. And it's a very realistic problem, because I suppose presumably the source of the issue was probably because you've not got factory industrial grade equipment at home, and the circular saw left a little bit to be desired in terms of its precision, I suppose.
Ultimately, it boils down to the fact I didn't pay enough for my circular saw. And that's the top and bottom of it. If my circular saw is like £100 circular saw rather than a £300 circular saw. So
but like you say, as a warning to everybody who just wants to go out and eyeball angles, well, there is a lot of kind of finesse and skill behind how you've, as you say, you learnt it back in your earlier days.
Yeah, but
as an engineer.
Don't let that put people off. I mean, what I've done is fairly simple. I've used an angle grinder because that was a tool that I had easily available, and I've used it to basically join 2 lines together. It's like a dot to dot, really. It's more complicated maybe looking and sounding than it really is. Lots of people could attempt this and do a great job of it. So don't be put off by that, although I will say it's probably not the best way of doing it.
Well, that's that one then. I mean, I'm trying to think of some other bits. Obviously, I'm editing the video at the moment, so at least I can help in some way, shape and form. But any other kind of major issues that you kind of found a way around?
No, I bought some new drills, actually, for a set that went from, I think it goes from like 11mm to 40, I think it's 40mm. Because we needed some like 32mm holes, we needed some 28mm holes. I think we needed a 35mm hole for the button, which Raid is 3D printing for us. But the thing is...
Thanks, Raid.
Yep, cheers, Raid. Can't wait to see that. The thing is, I needed the holes to be like really good quality so that they looked like a clean edge. And generally, there's lots of different types of drills you can use, like the paddle drills, the ones with the spade and it just spins around. And they're great at drilling holes when you're not bothered about what the hole's going to look like. But they tend to leave a pretty rough looking hole. I thought maybe I could use the router, but then I thought that's going to be a lot more time consuming. But I bought these drills, and yeah, I highly recommend them. The holes that they drill are fantastic, and I think it was like a £16.99 set from Amazon, so I highly recommend them. Really good bits of kit. But yeah, apart from that, that's pretty much top and bottom of the project, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to thank you from me, mate, and I'm sure I represent a lot of the viewers, Barcadians out there who are, a bit more layman's when it comes to DIY, woodwork, this sort of design and manufacturing, I suppose. And it was really good to get the insight and to see, step by step how you did things. That alone makes things feel that much more accessible. So yeah, fantastic job. I suppose there's one thing I did just want to clear up though, Rich, if it's okay with you. Fartgate. I think we better just put this one to bed so the comments don't get too out of hand.
So Tabz thinks I farted on near the end of the video, but what actually happened is when the washing machine or dishwasher is running in my kitchen, the sink gargles. I don't know why, it's something to do with the way the pipes are, but that was the noise you heard because at the time the washing machine was going. So it wasn't a fart.
I'm itching my beard, mate, on the other end.
Just, fart,
you can't see this, but all I'll say is a likely story.
Well, can I just say, it's been left in the edit, so I've been full on screwed over there.
Yeah, mate, I've proper gone for it as well. I think we needed some comic relief, from all serious
boring woodwork.
No, it's not boring at all, mate. It's really interesting, insightful, but you've got to scrape a gag out where you can, haven't you, these days?
Yeah, true. The only thing I will say is if you're going to attempt this project, be aware that we have decided to make this project significantly more complicated than it needed to be. So I look at it and think, if I'm encouraging people to do a project like this and you are maybe a bit more of a beginner, maybe try and go for a more simpler design to start off with. Maybe don't think about involving linear actuators and stuff. And we've gone for an incredibly complex marquee, which will run the course over the next few updates, where I'm sure you guys will really see that come to life. But yeah, maybe we've gone for a super complex version, and it doesn't need to be that complicated. So start small.
And I think just a couple of things from kind of somebody looking in. There was a couple of bits which I thought were really good that you did. There was one part where you kind of used an offcut of wood, I think, to kind of practice a tool on it, practice kind of measurements and things like that. I thought that was a great shout, and I suppose that's also a good way of kind of getting a feel, because I think there's a lot of that with woodwork, isn't there? Getting a feel of how the wood interacts with the tool and what the effect will be, to make sure you don't go too far or too less. So I think that was something I picked up. And also you have got a very systematic approach, and you check continuously. You check measurements continuously. You don't just measure at the start, clamp it and then do it at the end. You're always kind of checking for any slight, movement as you manhandle things into place. So that was my key takeaways, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they always say measure twice, cut once. I mean, I've been burned by these things in the past. It's very easy, especially when you're working on millimeters. Say you want to measure 57 millimeters. Well, it's very easy to accidentally measure 52 millimeters because you're thinking, I need to be 2 millimeters past the line, but you're at the wrong line. So I guess that's why that boils down. And yeah, I mean, it's always good to test what you do. And I think that came from when I was doing the slight cutout. We've got like a setback for where the marquee is going to sit, and I wanted to make sure that we'd got the right, because I had to set the depth of the router, but also how far in it would cut to make a 4x4 cutout. So I wanted to make sure that was going to come right. So yeah, there's lots to take away from there that maybe people could use to help them if they decide to do a project like this.
Cracking. And before I kind of give us a brief update on the software side of things, Rich, do you want to just talk us through, I suppose, what are the next things you're looking to tackle, and anything that viewers might be looking forward to as well?
Yep. So this weekend we've got a meeting here about it. Well, meeting sounds very, very formal. We've got a weekend planned. Where
meeting at Ranch.
Yeah.
Rich.
Yeah, we've got all manner of things planned: game playing and video filming and all sorts. But as part of that, we need to sit down.
Astral chaining.
Yeah, look out for the review. As part of that, though, we've got a lot to discuss on the project. We've got to decide LEDs. We've got to decide on the colours of the acrylics for the marquee. I've got to finalise the design for the BA button. I need to talk to Tabz about how the Raspberry Pi actually turns on, so I can work out how I'm going to sort the electrics for the button to work. There's a lot of things still to go at, and we've still got speakers to to sort and put in the thing, all the stuff to go inside. There's such a lot still to do on the project. I know it seems like the project is like 90% there because we've got a cabinet, but actually the fiddly, granular things that take time is what's left to do. So there's a lot to do.
We're thinking, what, about a month or so off in terms of project completion?
I would think so.
And that's pending software.
Yeah, and I would think that's by the time we finish painting it, because ultimately we've got to paint it yet. And the only other thing I would say is, you might have seen in this video that it looks like the linear actuator part is done, or the carriage as I'm calling it, and you would be right, that is done, but we're saving that for the next video. Basically, in making of the cabinet, I needed to engineer that part of the project while I could have it on the table flat, rather than trying to do it when it's in the cabinets and you can't get access to it, basically. So that bit is done, and it'll be in a further update.
And I think we'd always said we were hoping to kind of dedicate a video, even if it's a shorter one, to the linear actuator itself,
definitely.
just because it's such a, a cool and kind of unique function of this particular bartop arcade project. Yeah. I mean, other bits and pieces, I suppose we might end up doing again a short dedicated video to the software side of things. Maybe we'll do something on the buttons as well, because we really like to sing Raid's praises, and also give you guys a look at the BA button design on the marquee, which I think is going to be quite intricate. So that's all to come. So yeah, this might roll on for the next few months, who knows, but we'll try and give you some idea as to where we're going. So very, very briefly, I'll just cover off from my side. I'm still kind of waiting on the software side of things. Patiently, I'll add retropie, guys. I understand that you do this, in your spare time, and you're toiling away.
I have to say, I read that. I think it was after we dropped the last Pi video. I read that actually the retropie guys, they literally do it in their spare time. I was blown away by that.
It's graft and half,
the time and effort they must put into doing that, as well as having a full-time job, is just incredible. So full kudos to them.
I imagine it must be quite painstaking work at times to, messing with code and all sorts like that. Yeah. So you do a great job, guys, and we're waiting patiently, but also eagerly. And I do understand. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because it's not really my sphere normally, but I do follow the RetroPie official Facebook page. I understand there has been an unofficial image dropped for the RetroPie on Pi 4 recently. I think it's unofficial perhaps because it's not quite been fully optimized, and just not quite ready for the official release for everybody to go and take away. But it looks really encouraging. I think we've seen GoldenEye perhaps playing at full speed, which I shared a video with Rich on, so that's perfect for the what we were looking to achieve as a stretch goal, 4-player GoldenEye. I don't think I'll mess with taking this unofficial image, just because it's it's something I could end up getting myself confused and confounded with. I think I'll just sit tight and wait for this official image to drop. And the other side of that coin is, me and Rich we've had a quick discussion before this video about the Pi 3B Plus, because again, Raid has very kindly offered to lend us that as a kind of a stopgap until we get the Pi 4 drop. But I just feel for now it's perhaps not worth the kind of time and investment that we'll put into it, when it does sort of feel like the Pi 4 update might be maybe a month around the corner, or no rush, guys, but it feels like it might be closer than
the other thing
than what we feared.
The other thing to that is we're at least a month away from finishing the rest of the project. So if it drops in a month's time, there's plenty of other things we can do on the project in the meantime. So I don't view that as a disaster if we've got to wait another month or whatever it'll be. I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, if they come out this week or next week and say it's going to be 6 months, then we'll reevaluate that. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think for now we'll rest on our laurels and hold fire for it.
Yeah, bide the time while we've got it, and we can cross that bridge when it happens upon. But yeah, so I think we'll wrap this video up, because there's a pizza guy outside ready to deliver my tea.
Bang on.
So Rich, Any parting statements that you want to?
No, my only passing statement is I hope you found it interesting and not boring, because it's a chap just doing some woodwork. I hope I somehow made it a little bit more, informative, so that you could take some stuff away from it, and that's it really.
I thought it was brilliant, Rich. So yeah, I'm sure all of Arcadians viewers out there will let us know in the comments as well. Just the same. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please give us a like. It really helps to grow and support the channel. If you didn't, then give us a dislike. Feedback is always welcome, but please do tell us in the comments what you didn't like, so we can look to fix things going forwards. If you want to see more from Rich and I and the BArcade project, then please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell for notifications. And I think that's probably about it. Another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.